Hey guys, welcome back to the MoshPit's beginner's guide on how to do Wi-Fi battling online. So last episode we talked about natures because natures are very important to making your first guy, and we're using the example of Scizor for this 5-video sprint. So without further ado, let us continue on to our second topic, which are EVs. What is an EV? Some people like to also know them as EPs. They were known as EPs in the past. Both the same thing. EV stands for effort value, EP stands for effort point. It's pretty much the same thing. It is the same thing. It's just two different ways of saying the same thing. The most common way of saying it nowadays are EVs, so that's what I'm going to be using for this guide because it's pretty much the norm. So what is an effort value? Well, let's look at it this way. This is probably the most complex thing that I've had to explain thus far, and thus I'm going to try and take it quite slowly. Every time in-game that you kill an opponent, an opposing Pokemon, you will gain what is known as an effort value. Now, these effort values are split between the 6 stats. So you have effort values for HP, attack, special defense, and speed. So each individual guy that you defeat will give you a specific number of effort values in said stat. Okay, so let's give an example here. Let's say, for example, you have I don't know, whatever, your Scizor. Let's say you have your Scizor and you're training it up, and you come across a Magikarp and you kill that Magikarp. Once you've defeated that Magikarp, you will get 1 effort value in the speed stat, because Magikarp, when you kill it, it gives you an effort value in speed. Of course, 1 effort value isn't going to do you a whole lot of good. What happens is that your stat will raise by 1 point, so your individual speed stat will raise by 1 point for every 4 effort values that you manage to gain. So let's say you kill 4 Magikarps, that will give you +1 in the speed stat on your guy. So let's say you do this 252 times. That would give you 252 speed points, effort values into your speed stat, which would raise it by in amount which needs to be divided by 4, because obviously every 4 effort values is going to give you +1 in that stat. Calculator. So if you divide 252 by 4, you'll find that you get 63. Now, why am I using the number 252? Well, what I should first of all say is that the maximum amount of EVs that one Pokemon can have is 510. Now, if you divide 510 by 2, saying that you want to maximize out 2 stats, then you'll come to a grand total of 255. Now, 255 is an awkward number because it doesn't divide exactly into 4, meaning that if you do give a poke 255 effort values in a particular stat, 3 of those are going to be wasted. So you want to stick to 252, because 252 will give you the maximum amount of stat increase, which is 63 increases in that stat. 63 greater points in that stat, pretty much. So if you say your attack was 300 and you killed something which gives you attack EVs, 252 of them, if they give you 1 attack EV, your attack will increase from 300 to 363. Okay, so let's slow down here. We've got effort values. 510 is the maximum that you can put into a poke, and 252 is the maximum that you can put into one given stat. This means that the job is made slightly easier for guys like sweepers who want to invest into speed and one of the 2 attacking stats. So let's take our Scizor, for example. Now, I did say in the last video that Scizor doesn't rely on speed because it has other options for it which it doesn't need speed for, but it wants to rely on the attack. So if you take the adamant nature we had last time, and you add to it 252 EVs into its attack stat, that's going to maximize its attack stat as far as it can go. That's strictly speaking though, because there's another third thing, IVs, individual values, which will be explained next video, which will pretty much make sure that you get the maximum, the absolute maximum amount of points in your stat. But as far as this goes so far, adamant nature and 252 using natures and EVs is the highest you can get. So what would we do with the other 252 EVs on this Scizor? Well, Scizor is a poke that, you know, likes to live for quite a long time, and its sweeping could be potentially helped if it was to live longer. Now, some people would like to put EVs into defense and special defense. The best defensive stat to put your EVs into is HP, because HP is going to be the number of points that you have, your health, and the more you have, the more likely you are to live. Defense and special defense are kind of iffy because you have to split it between both of them. You never know whether you're going to be hit by a defensive or especially a physical or special attack. So that's kind of an iffy point there, which is why people mainly go for the HP stat and try and beef that out as much as possible. So with our Scizor, we're going to go 252 into attack, 252 into HP. Now, you may be wondering, wait a second, there are 6 more points there because, as I said before, 255 does not divide by 4, so we take off 3 and give 252 to each poke. So, what the remaining 6 do is they can go into any stat you want to. 2 EVs are unfortunately going to be left out because they just won't fit in, but you can put 4 EVs into one stat and boost it by 1 point, which you never know in the long run might help you. So what we might want to do is put 6 EVs into the speed stat, because what that will mean is that if we face opposing Scizors and they have maybe the 6 EVs but in defense stat, we're going to be outspeeding them because we have that 1 extra point. Okay, so I guess your minds are slightly frazzled by now with all these numbers jumping around the place and everything, but as long as you kind of think of it in as simple terms as you can, I know it's difficult, but it's kind of, you get the hang of it as the more you sort of deal with it and think about it. It's hard to begin with, obviously, because you have all these numbers flying around, you think, what is this EV stuff? But as long as you take your time with it, and maybe watch this video back a few times and hopefully just sort of ingrain it into your mind as to what these stand for and how they help each stat. Of course, you do not have to have 252 in 2 stats and have 6 in another. You can split the 510 any variety of ways you want, and this usually comes in with walls where you want to be splitting between the defensive stats, you want to be giving some attack as well as HP, so you're not going to be using 252 for every stat every time. You might be using maybe 56 EVs here, 176 there, I don't know. There are different numbers you can plug in everywhere, and you sort of try and balance your guy so that it's able to take hits from something and able to deal hits on something. For example, back in the day, people had specially based mixed Infernape, where they would carry close combat on their Infernape but have mostly special moves. So what they would have is, the reason for close combat is to take out Blissey, so they would put enough EVs into the attack stat so that it would one-hit KO Blissey. So they'd have that attack stat, but they wouldn't max out the special attack stat, they'd just put enough into the attack stat to get rid of Blissey, because that was the main point of the set. Now, there are items which you can use to help beef out your EVs without having to fight so many pokes. This will all be covered in the EV training sort of guide, because at the moment I don't want to go EVs straight into EV training without you having had time to absorb what EVs are, what they do, and everything like that. So there will be a separate thing on how to EV train your guys individually. But for now, we're just going to stick with the EV explanation, and hopefully that's been as comprehensive as I can be at this stage, and hopefully you take that all into account and make sure that you remember it. So as long as you remember, every poke in the game gives off an effort value which can be pertained to either of the stats, either of the 6 stats. And some pokes will give you more than 1. Say Magikarp gives you 1. I believe Gyarados might give you 2. So if you beat a Gyarados, that'll give you 2 speed points as opposed to 1 speed point. And if you get all these points adding up, you will eventually increase your stats to a maximum of plus 63 in each stat. So 252 EVs equals plus 63 in each stat. Also remembering that you can put EVs in as many ways as you want, remembering that the limit is 510, and that you can put them in, split that 510 as many times as you want, but make sure when you're splitting the numbers that the number is divisible by 4, because if it isn't divisible by 4, then it's not going to reap the maximum benefit for you. Otherwise you'll just be left with random leftover EVs that aren't actually accomplishing anything, but are just going to still be there and aren't going to be helping you out in any way. So I hope that that was as comprehensive as I possibly could be. If you want to see more of this content, Learn to Metagame channel's in the description as always. My channel's in the description as always. always, and I guess sub to the MoshPit beta, not beta, because that's American beta, anyway, beta, and all that good stuff, and I will see you guys next time on the next beginner's guide, in which we will delve into IVs and finally figure out how to get that maximum stat that you see on the Cerebi thing every single time. So, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time.